Shalom lekulam, and welcome to class number 10, 10th class in the uh, introduction or prologue of the book of Zohar. As I have mentioned before in other lessons, these lessons are basically about the book of Zohar, but they are also called receiving and giving lesson because um, not only you're not only learning about the Zohar, you're also receiving light as you learn. And I think that's the most important thing. It's not about learning and receiving knowledge about the Zohar, it's about the light that we reveal when we study the Zohar, especially when we maintain the proper intention. Um, and the intention is not only that we want to understand what the book of Zohar is, it's all about and wants to give us, but the intention should be that we're studying this, that we are basically preparing ourselves, preparing our vessel, so we can receive this light and share it with the rest of the world. And the whole point of us doing that is not because I want my own personal spiritual ascensions to different levels of spirituality to connect to the Creator, but because I want to prepare my vessel in order to connect with the other missing pieces of my soul, which is other human beings in the world. And the book of Zohar is going to help us prepare our vessel in a way that we will understand that even though people are different than us, people will be seen as different in many ways, in the way they speak, in the way they are, in the race, culture, language, whatever. Those are mere illusions based on our perception of reality and has nothing to do with spirituality. And Zohar is going to help us understand the spiritual side of all these things and see what is happening behind all these supposedly differences that we see between us and other human beings. And the whole purpose of the study of Kabbalah, the whole purpose of Torah is one thing, is to learn how to love our fellow creatures or fellow human beings as ourselves. Because that's the only way we will for real fulfill the commandment of loving the Creator above all things. It's because if we love the other pieces of our soul, we're loving ourselves. If we love ourselves, we're accepting basically the creation of the Creator, which is us, the human beings, or Adam Harishon, the first Adam. So what we're working is basically putting together the pieces of Adam Harishon when he fell down from, like some people say, from grace, when he fell down from the level of the world of Atziluth to lower levels. And we want to elevate these parts of our soul by studying the book of Zohar. That must be the whole intention. Not only acquiring knowledge about how mystical this is and that kind of stuff, because it's not about mysticism, it's more about the work that we need to do, the internal work. Okay, so it's very important to understand that. So like always, we're gonna start with the intention, and basically what we're gonna be doing is as we do in every lesson, we're gonna scan these letters. These letters are names of God that are being filled with other names of God and letters. You don't need to understand this. Eventually you will know why is this pattern presented to you and why we're reading this before we study the Zohar. And through the study of this section, the letters of Rabbi Hamuna Saba, we will understand why these letters also are important. So pay attention to each of these letters, like the Yod, the Aleph, the Vav, the Lamed, the Dalet, the Pei, and that way you understand what force or what kind of purpose these letters have in creation. What do they represent? Okay, but for now, understand these are names of God that are being filled with other names of God. Okay, and we're gonna scan it from. If you're looking at the screen, you're gonna scan it from your right to your left. Okay, All right, so I'm gonna give you a few seconds to scan this, and then I will be reading the prayer before we study the book of Zohar. A prayer from the Ari, Rav Isaac Luria, to be recited before the study of the Zohar. Ruler of the universe and master of all masters, the Father of mercy and forgiveness. We thank you, our God and God of our fathers, by bowing down and kneeling, that you brought us closer to your Torah and your holy word, and you enable us to take part in the secrets of your holy Torah. How worthy are we that you grant us with your big favor, which is the reason we plead before you, that you will forgive and acquit all our sins, and that they should not bring separation between you and us. And may it be your will before you, our God and the God of our forefathers, that you will awaken and prepare our hearts to love and revere you. And may you listen to our utterances and open our closed hearts to the hidden studies of your Torah. And may our study be pleasant before your place of honor, as the aroma of sweet incense, and may you emanate to us light from the source of our soul, to all our being, and may the sparks of your holy servants, through which you reveal your wisdom to the world, shine. May their merit and the merit of their fathers and the merit of their Torah and holiness support us, so we shall not stumble through our study, and by their merit enlighten our eyes in our learning, as it is stated by King David, the sweet singer of Israel. Open my eyes so that I will see wonders from your Torah. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. May the utterances of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart find favor before you, God, my strength and my Redeemer. Okay, so in our last lesson, we were reading, or we were actually studying the Zohar, and we were talking about the letter Tav. And in that section, which is for those of you who are following us using the Baal HaSulam or the Kabbalah Center Zohar, is the letters of Rabbi Hamuna Saba, item 22. That's where everything starts. And then for the letter Tav, it will start on item number, go over here, item 23. Okay, and then we talk about the letter Tav, how the letter Tav is basically the lowest of all the letters when it comes to being closer to the kliphot, and how it was basically a seal. It was sealed by putting one of its legs that was reaching down to the impure forces. Let me bring that slide back right here. So this little leg here was reaching down here to the impure forces. So what happened was, according to the explanation of the Baal HaSulam, the creator basically bend it upward, and that way it creates a seal, and these kliphot are not fed by the letter Tav with the light, so they can in this way not basically destroy the system above. Okay, and then we talk about the transition between the Tav, the Kuf, the Hey, and the Ta and the Tef. Okay, so if you want to know more about that, make sure you see the previous lesson, lesson number 9, in which it is explained. Okay, but in this lesson we're going to be talking about the letter Shin. Before we go to the letter Shin, I need you to understand how these letters are. Okay, where they are located. We mentioned before in the previous lesson that the letters are located in the area that we call Zeir Anpin. Okay, Zeir Anpin and Malkuth. And that's where the letters are located. And specifically, when we say Zeir Anpin and Malkuth, we're talking about Zeir Anpin and Malkuth of Atziluth. So we're going to have Zeir Anpin of Atziluth, Malkuth of Atziluth, and the letters are located basically on that area, because Binah is basically the creator that is going to use this letter in order to create what we call, all the creations of the book of Bereshit in Genesis, right? And what we're gonna be seeing is, as we read these sections and items inside the prologue of the Zohar and the article of the letters of Rabbi Hamun and Saba, is that we need to understand that the Tav, the Shin, the Resh, and the Kuf, they are located basically in Malkuth of Atziluth. Okay, they're not only located in Malkuth of Atziluth, but they form basically their 10 Sephiroth. And how do they form 10 Sephiroth? The Kuf is gonna be Keter, Resh is gonna be Abba Veima, which is Chokmah and Binah. Zeir Anpin is gonna be Shin, which is the 6 Sephiroth of Zeir Anpin of Tiferet, and then Malkuth is the Tav. Okay, so in there you're gonna see that configuration of Sephiroth, and then you're gonna see the same configuration of Sephiroth according to the rest of the letters, which we are not gonna explain all these here because the Zohar is gonna explain it to us. But what you need to understand is that there are gonna be some inner aspects and outer aspects of these Hebrew letters, and as we study, we're gonna see why these letters are considered outer or inner, and what does that actually mean. We may not cover all the letters in this lesson. We may have another class in this article. Like I said in the previous class, this is an article that's kind of complicated because it has a lot of information for each letter. We want to make sure we cover as much as possible the secrets behind each letter and why this letter was not used or used in order to create the world. Okay, so just I want you to understand that. Okay, so Tav, Shin, Ref, and Kuf are Malkuth, and the rest of the letters are located in Zeir Anpin, but they have outer and inner aspects. Okay, and we're gonna see that when we talk about the Tzaddik, and we're gonna see the change. We have the Tzaddik being basically in Yesod, but then when we study the Teth is also in Yesod, and it's because it's an inner aspect of Yesod of Zeir Anpin of Atziluth. Okay. All right. So let's start with the Zohar, letter Shin. The letter Shin then entered and stood before him. It said, Master of the universe, may it please you to create the world with me, as your own name Shaddai is with me. And it would be most proper to create the world by a holy name. It replies, you're worthy, you're good, and you are truthful. But because you are included among the letters that form the word falsehood, sheker, I do not wish to create the world with you. Falsehood would not have prevailed had you not been attached to the letters resh and kuf. From this, whomever wants to tell a lie should add that lie to a base that is truthful. Because the letter Shin is a letter of truth, meaning a letter of truth by which the patriarchs reach unison. Shin's 3 arms represent Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, they also represent the Sephirat Chesed, Geburah, and Tiferet. And the letters Kuf and Resh appear in the evil side. Kuf and Resh, they spell the word Kar, which means cold. In order for them to continue to exist, they pull the letter Shin to them, creating the combination Kesher, which means connection. When the Shin realized this, it left. Okay, what does this mean? What is the meaning of this item? So let's go. Like I mentioned before, I'm using to explain the Zohar the explanation or the commentaries of the Baal HaSulam. And what the Baal HaSulam tells us that Malkuth, let me go back to the slide in which Malkuth consists of two endings. These two endings are basically from Keter, the Malkuth, Keter the Malkuth, which is Kuf, all the way to Malkuth the Malkuth, which is Tov. Okay. If Ima of the world of Atziluth fills Malkuth with the light, so Ima is Binah over here, right, in the top, fills Malkuth with its light, since or Chokmah by the use of Or Hasidim. Parsuf Malkuth and not a Sephiroth Malkuth, but ends by the Sephiroth Yesod, which is designated by the letter Shin. So remember, Shin is Zeir Anpin. Zeir Anpin, if you look at Zeir Anpin of Atziluth here, instead of Zeir Anpin of Malkuth down here, Zeir Anpin of Atziluth is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Sephiroth, which are Chesed, Gevurat, Tifaret, Nesachot, and Yesod, and Hod, Nesach, and Yesod. And then what happened is, Yesod over here is represented down here by the letter Shin. So the Yesod of Atziluth is going to be the letter Tzaddik, which you're going to see later. But the Yesod of Malkuth is going to be the letter Shin because it represents these 6 Sephiroth inside the Zeir Anpin of Malkuth, Atziluth. Okay? So from two endings, from Keter to Malkuth, and this is only, that it contains the 10 Sephiroth, so these are the two endings, which in this case, Malkuth restricts the diffusion of the light and is designated as the letter Tav. Okay, so here the light is restricted. But then when Binah fills Malkuth with the light goes all the way to Yesod of Zeir Anpin, which is the Shin. And remember, Yesod, the Zeir Anpin, the Atziluth, or the Malkuth de Atziluth. So it's kind of like, you gotta make sure you understand that. Zeir Anpin of Atziluth, Malkuth de Atziluth. So when we say Malkuth of Atziluth, and we say Zeir Anpin of Malkuth de Atziluth is down here, Zeir Anpin of Atziluth is up here. But remember, Zeir Anpin here has also a Tifaret, so there's a Zeir Anpin of Zeir Anpin of Atziluth. So it's kind of confusing, but as you learn more and more, you're gonna see that Kabbalah is like a fractal. It repeats itself. It just repeats itself over and over and over, and that makes it easy to understand the different levels that we're talking about. Now, the 3 tips of the Shin are called the crown of the Shin, and these 3 tips of the Shin are considered basically what is called Or Hasidim, or the light of mercy, that descends from Parsuf Ava Be'ima, or Ima, into Parsuf Malkuth. So from here down to Parsuf Parsuf Malkuth the Atziluth of Atziluth, in which we have an ending of in Zeir Anpin, Yesod the Zeir Anpin. Now, the light of Binah, which is the light of mercy, or Hasidim, through which the light of Chokmah is gonna go to the lower ones, creates altruistic properties inside Malkuth. Okay, and in this way, Malkuth can receive this light of Chokmah. And when Malkuth connects with Zeir Anpin, Zeir Anpin, they are called husband and wife. That means that the light that Malkuth received from Zeir Anpin is called 100 blessings. And we're going to understand that, because here in Sadi, we're gonna see that it's an union of 2 letters, the letter Nun and the letter Yod. And these 2 letters have the numerical value, the Nun of 50 and the Yod of 10, which equals 60. But also remember, it's also 6 Sephiroth, each of them with 10 Sephiroth within. So that's basically 60 right there. Now you have 4 Parsufim here, each of them with 10 Sephiroth. 60 plus 40, that will be 100. That's why it's called 100 blessings, because full with the light. Okay, but we're gonna touch that, in details later. Okay. Now the new ending of the parsuf of Malkuth is gonna be here where the Shin is, and that is the Yesod of Malkuth of Atziluth. And it says that this is called Yesod the Nupa, Yesod the Yesod of Malkuth, and it's called the central point of existence. For everything that exists in the world originates from there and exists thanks to that Yesod of the Zeir Anpin of Malkuth of Atziluth. Okay. So Parsuf Malkuth is the sum of all the creatures with all the parts and all the beings that are going to inhabit the worlds afterwards. Okay, so this is where the seed or everything is gonna be basically found, so everything else can exist. As we mentioned before, we need to keep in mind that the upper parsuf are gonna be seen as a creator to the lower parsuf. So we need to keep that in mind. When we say creator, we are talking about a higher force that is working in the lower realm. Okay. Like the letter Tov, the letter Shin is called also truth. And it's also called the creator's seal. And for a seal, I'm gonna read it directly from a seal signifies the end of a spiritual parsuf, a spiritual, personification of these forces. Like a seal fixed at the end of a letter written in the name of the creator. The creator's seal is similar to the creator himself. This is why the seal is called a mark of truth, or seal of truth. For only the presence of a seal gives a letter the force of the truth. This confirms the truthfulness of the content. So basically, if the creator is, let's say, the king, and the king has a ring, and that ring has a seal, the imprint of that ring into the wax and whatever is there, it has basically like the same respect like if it was a king that was there present. Okay, so that's very important, and that's the significance of the letter Shin that is so greater, because the letter Tav for Shin is the difference between the letter Tav is that the Shin is the first letter of the name Shaddai, one of the names of the creator, right? And this name represents, there's a lot of teachings about this name, Kabbalah teachings about this name, but here what we're gonna see is that the Shin, let me write the name here so you can have an idea what the Shaddai and the name Shaddai. So that's the name Shaddai. Okay, so the Shin is united with the letter Dalet and the letter Yod, and the letter Dalet and the letter Yod, and they create this Hebrew word called Dai, and the letter Dai means enough. It's like enough. It's like a stop, right? So it's enough for the creation to go further. Basically, that's what it means. And this is based on Talmud Hagiga 12. Which basically says, that this is where we're gonna stop right here by the letter Shin, okay, and then die, enough. From there down, this is where we're gonna stop, and that's the symbolism basically behind the name Shaddai, and that's the symbolism that the commentary of the Baal HaSulam is giving us to understand that this letter talks about the name Shaddai. It says, it will benefit to create a word with me, for your own name Shaddai begins with me, but then we're gonna see why the creator decided not to use the letter. Why? Now one thing to understand is like, why did it stop right there at the Yesod of Malkuth of Atziluth? And in the previous lesson, we talked about the Tav. The Tav is a letter that is the closest to the lower forces, the forces of Tumah, the impure forces. Okay, so the Creator said, and this is I'm reading from Baal HaSulam. The Creator says, "Stop, die, right? Dalet Yod. Stop, creature, at the letter Shin, and do not spread to the letter Tav. For if the light has spread to Tav, the impure forces would have received such great strength that man would have no hope of escaping them and reaching altruistic properties. This is why the ending point of Shin is called the central point of existence." Okay, so if it was to go lower, the top is basically the one. Let me see if I can add some over here. So the top is gonna be the one that is gonna be closer to these forces of Tumah, right? Just pretend that that red bar is the forces of Tumah. The impure forces is the one that is closer. So we stop at Shaddai, or Shaddai, means stop at Zeir Anpin at the Shin. Now, the letter Shin saw that the Creator refused the letter Tav, right? Precisely because ending precisely because the Creator didn't want the light to go all the way down to these forces. And however, even though the Shin has this power of stopping the light right there before it reaches Tav, so Tav cannot feed these forces of Tumah, the Tav has an advantage, and is that it is the Creator seal, and the Creator seal is truth. And remember, we talk about the truth, and the truth is Emet, and Emet is the first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter, which is the Tav. So without the Tav, you just have the basically two letters, which is or Im, and you just have these properties of pure bestowal, but it's not a bestowal, it's more like a restriction. It's more a restriction that is not giving yet. It's just in a smallness. The light has not reached the end of creation like it's supposed to. But when you add the Tav is kind of like an altruistic force, or an egoistic force, I should say, an egoistic force that has acquired somehow certain restriction, and this restriction, in order not to receive for itself, is because it has acquired qualities of Binah, qualities of bestowal. Okay, so this is what you need to understand here. It's like the further away from the Tav the letters are, the less egoistic it becomes. Okay, so keep that in mind as we continue. Now, the Shin has, however, an additional advantage to the letter Tav. Opposite to each letter, especially the pure forces of these properties, spiritually pure forces of this property, there is an opposing impure or egoistic force. So when we read the book of Kohelet, which says the Creator have made one opposite to the other. So the Creator has made this world of holiness basically appear, but there's also down here a world that is opposite. And this world, we're not gonna study it, because we're gonna concentrate mostly in the light side. But this world has also Keter, Avaveima, Tifaret, and Malkuth, but it's from the forces of Tumah, forces, impure forces, and This is why, it's to keep in mind why we don't deal with these forces, is because we cannot feed them with the light that we're trying to get into this world. Okay, we know they're there. We know that our job is to raise them from there into a higher realm, into a place where they can be purified. But we don't work with them. We only gonna see the redemption of these forces when the Gamar Hatikun comes in, which is the end of correction. And that will happen when all of us have done our work of correcting our souls by mending our desire to receive or a desire to bestow, when we start loving each other as ourselves, right? And when we connect with each other, each part of our soul correctly, then these forces, as we ascend towards this world of Atziluth that we're studying right now, as we ascend, these forces also are going to be ascending from that darkness, and they're also going to be redeemed, to use that word, redeemed from darkness. Because everything, I know there's some religious groups that think that the end of the world, or the end of correction, evil is going to be destroyed, that kind of stuff. It's not like that. Don't think anything is going to be destroyed. Nothing in creation goes to waste. Everything has a purpose. And when that thing that we see as something bad, that has a name that we associate with something negative or bad, is redeemed or raises, or is risen basically to a higher level of vibration in the spiritual realm, its name is going to change. And we have seen that in previous classes, in which we see Malkuth, right? We see Malkuth going to Binah, basically going higher, rising all the way to Binah. And Malkuth then is not called Malkuth anymore. It's now called Binah because it acquired these altruistic qualities. Therefore, its name changed to Binah. Okay, so this is what is going to happen with these forces in the end of correction. And this is why we're studying this, in order to make sure that through our inner work, by concentrating on the light that we're studying, and acquiring that light properly, that we are also at the same time creating this vessel of this huge vessel in which we're going to receive the light and elevate ourselves to the world of Atziluth, and in this way elevate these forces as well. Okay, so there are two sources of impure forces. The first one is called Nerdakit. Nerdakit is a small luminescence. It is created, which the pure force itself, which is the creator, sent to the impure forces to sustain them. So that tells you something. There's some kind of mercy in there, right? They're impure, but they need to be kept alive somehow. And this is done in a way that they will not disappear until they're needed. And use this word, but it's not the proper word. Until they're needed to chastise or punish the sinners with them. And it's not that they're there to punish. In reality, is that they're there, and somehow the creator is feeding these forces to keep them alive. So when we transgress, these forces are going to put pressure in us, a pressure that we're going to see it as bad and negative in our life, in order to help us perform teshuvah. Because you might be surprised, and this might sound, like I never heard that before, but once you read more of Kabbalah and things like that, you understand that it's like that. These forces don't want to be evil, don't want to be negative. These forces want to be redeemed as well. Nothing in creation wants to be in darkness. Everything wants to have light. But if these forces depend on the human soul to ascend, to have some kind of redemption, they're going to be bothering. They're going to put pressure in us. And if they know that the potential of the human being is to do that, to redeem them from darkness, they're going to put pressure in the human soul, right? And the human soul is going to see it as pain, as suffering. But it's these forces showing that, hey, you need to perform tikkun, you need to perform these corrections in order for every body in the system to ascend, okay? Because the system fell down. Now we need to raise the system. And it's not just the human soul, it's a whole bunch of other souls as well, forces and things like that, okay? So this small luminescence card, there's a kid, descends into the impure forces from the letter Kuf, okay? And the letter Kuf, as we see, is basically Keter of Malkuth the Atziluth, okay? And this is why these impure forces, and we're going here into a deeper, just don't want people to misunderstand. This is why some of these forces, when you hear people talking about ghosts, demons, and that kind of stuff, this is why these forces are seen almost in the same way as a human being with two hands or two arms, two legs, and things like that. And it's because even though they're similar to a human being, they resemble, like the body of the human being is basically somehow similar of that of a monkey. The letter Kuf means exactly that. The letter Kuf means monkey. So that's why these forces are going to resemble that, and they may act erratically like monkeys as well, okay? So that's why these forces, they're kind of similar to man, and they're actually in the world of Binah, okay? Binah, when we go to, let me see if I can find this slide. So we're talking about Atziluth, we're up here, right? Down here in the world of Binah, that's where these forces are gonna be, because that's the lower realm. That's the realm that fell down. That's the system that actually fell down when Adam sinned, okay? But right now, keep in mind, we're not talking yet about that fall. Here we're talking about what happened before the creation that we read in the book of Genesis, okay? So don't confuse this with, it just, that is telling us how these forces are being fed. They're being fed by that letter Kuf. And that letter Kuf signifies, in Hebrew, Kuf means monkey. So because they're fed from that letter, these evil forces that are receiving this letter, the kid, this small luminescence, they resemble human beings, just like monkeys resemble human beings, okay? Now, the source of impure forces is the letter resh, which indicates that the impure force rise and attach themselves to the pure forces right up to the level of Binah of Malkuth by the letter Dalet. As it was stated, the 22 letter of the Parsut Malkuth of the world of Atziluth are divided into 3 groups: Binah, tens in Zeir Anpin, and hundreds in Atziluth. Okay, so you're gonna find in Binah the units, you're gonna find Zeir Anpin the 10th, and the hundredth in Malkuth. However, let me see if I still have that slide. Maybe not. What you're going to find is that these may change depending how the light is working, just like the letters. At least let me get the letters. Just like the letters, when we have the minute in the feminine waters, which is the prayers, you start from the letter Tov all the way to the unit, which is Keter. When you're receiving the light, which is unclean, which is a masculine water, the units then are up there, and the hundreds and the thousands are down here, okay? So this is gonna be also confusing when we talk about 100 blessings and 1,000 blessings. We go like, but in the other lesson you mentioned, that the units were in Malkuth. Now you're telling me that the units are in Keter. It's depending in the ascension or descent of these forces, okay? If it is an ascension, basically we're sending someone up or some prayer up. It starts with the hundreds, the thousands, hundreds, and then units, right? If it's an answer, it starts with a unit, hundreds, and then thousands. So it depends, from where we're receiving, from where actually the light or the forces are moving, okay? Now, the letters Aleph, Bet, and Gimel, they correspond to the Sephiroth Keter, Chokmah, Binah, and they're called the head. So the letter Aleph, Bet, and Gimel is Keter, Chokmah, Binah, and they're called the head, the resh, okay, of the Parsuf. The letters from Dalet is this one here, all the way to Het, or Tet in this case, Tet is going to be Yesod. They refer to the body, to the goof of the Parsuf. So what you're going to have is, let me see if I can change here the color so you can see the difference. So what you're going to see is that these three letters, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, are the head, the resh, and the rest of the letter, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, and Tef, are going to be the goof. And the same thing is going to happen with the outer aspects of the letter. Now the body, which is from Dalet to Tef, only receive what descends to it from the head. So we need to keep that in clear, because remember, we talk about Ava Ve'ima, Zeir Anpin of Malkuth. Zeir Anpin of Malkuth will not receive anything unless they have a request, a question, right? And there's an answer to that question from above when Ava Ve'ima couple, and then Light of Hasidim wraps around the Or Chokmah, so it can be sent down to the lower ones, okay? Now, the Dalet, the first letter of the body, which is right here, right? Which is the Dalet, is the first letter to receive light from the head. This is why it's called, Dalet is called poor and destitute. It's called Dalave Aniyah, which means poor and destitute. Dalet receives only what Gimel gives it. And Gimel contains this life of Hasidim that I was talking about, because Gimel is Binah. And then from there, that life of Hasidim is going to go to Dalet. Now, this is the reason why this letter Gimel that gives to Dalet is called Gomel Hasidim, merciful one, right? And this is according to the actions it performs to this poor and destitute, the Dalave Aniyah, called the letter Dalet. And if you want to read a little bit about what Gomel Hasidim is all about, this aspect of mercy of the Creator, you can go to Talmud Shabbat 104. Now, when you look at the letter Dalet, there's a protruding sharp angle on the right side of the Dalet, and it's the abundance, or the abundance of Or Hasidim, or the light of mercy, in this letter Dalet. Okay, and this is where we're gonna get a little bit technical. So I'm gonna write the letter Dalet and then the letter resh, because now we're gonna talk about these two letters and how these two letters are basically related. And it's all because of that differences, the difference between the shape that they have. Okay, so you got a Dalet and a resh, and as we know that opposite to the altruistic, the altruistic Malkuth that we're talking here, there's also an egoistic Malkuth, which is a Malkuth that is impure. It's one of the forces of Tumah, which is it's all about pride. It doesn't want to give. It's all about give me, give me, give me. And then this one does not want to receive the light from Gimel, that is light of Hasidim. And instead, what's happening is this Malkuth rises, it says it rises itself all the way to here, right, and creates that sharp curvature in there, which is a symbol of of the Or Hasidim in there. And when it raises itself to that curvature, it creates then or eliminates, that basically that little entrance in there, and that little entrance, basically the Or Hasidim, then disappears, and the letter becomes a resh. A resh then is written, and it is as it is pronounced, resh and shin, resh. So you got resh, shin. So it's Zeir Anpin. So the resh is pronounced that way. So the true merging of Zeir Anpin and Malkuth is called echad. It's called one. It consists of the letter aleph, which is here, aleph, het, which is this one here, and dalet, which is this one here. And for the letters from aleph to het, there are 9 Sephiroth of Zeir Anpin. Okay, that's why we have them, with this bracket over here, they are the inner aspect of the 9 Sephiroth inside Zeir Anpin. Okay, and when the aleph, make sure I'm translating, when the light passes basically from Gimel of Binah to Gimel of Malkuth, resulting in Malkuth that is filled with the light of Hasidim, the Or Hasidim, then the light of this letter becomes dalet with a protruding right angle, and as a result of this, Zeir Anpin and Malkuth become one. So you got aleph, het, and then when the light from here basically goes to, make sure, Gimel of Binah to Gimel of Malkuth, is from Gimel of Binah to Gimel of Malkuth. So it's gonna be from here to here. What we're gonna see is that then from the resh, it's gonna be then dalet, and it becomes echad. So aleph, het, so 9 Sephiroth. The light is gonna enter all these 9 Sephiroth in here, and they're gonna create the dalet, the dalet, the protrusions in the dalet signifying Or Hasidim. Okay, and that now, let's see if I can write it down here. This is the word erat, the word echad, and then there's another word which is so what's happening is the following. When it is altruistic, when the lights receive in an altruistic way from Binah all the way to Atziluth, to the Zeir Anpin of Atziluth, and the aleph, and since basically the light goes to the aleph all the way to the het properly, like it's supposed to be, received in a way that is in an altruistic way, non-egoistic way, this is called echad. Echad means one, means unity, unified. But when the light goes down and it's all egoistic, it's all, like, it's not like the dalet that has that little, little entrance right there that signifies the Or Hasidim. When it doesn't have that, it becomes a resh, right? So when the light is received in a way that is egoistic, that we don't care, what the mother wants to give us, we don't have basically any regards for it, it becomes acher. And acher means foreign, alien, different, something that is not familiar, right? And this is also the symbolism of what is idolatry. It's about an egoistic desire, and this is why we're gonna see in the Torah, in which this has a connection with what is called the Elohim Acherim, the other gods, and what happened also as well in a story in the Torah in which they call or they were worshiping a god before Moses came down of the mountain Sinai, right? The Elohim, these are your Elohim. These are acher, alien Elohim. These are basically Egyptians in the sense, which is Egypt is basically down here in the bottom, right? We're coming up from Egypt. So it's basically going back to the acher, to that back actually, because acher is more like back, like the back instead of the front. You know, this is the back, foreign, alien, something that we don't see, we don't want. Okay, so this is so when we receive that light egoistically, what happens is that these other gods or other forces of Tuma, they cling to Zeir Anpin and Malkuth of the pure world of Atziluth, and they feed themselves from that. And that also happens, you know, since I'm kind of running out of time to go to the kuf and the resh. Let me explain this. It's also so you can see some practical thing in this. This also applies to us. If we are receiving the light, and this is the reason I was in the beginning saying to you to concentrate in studying Kabbalah that is about how to receive the light, not Kabbalah, because you're gonna see some names out there that or some groups out there that use the word Kabbalah, and they have some something of it that it's is true about when it comes to these dark forces, but we're not supposed to study those forces, you know, in a way that they're doing it. We are not supposed to be or be taking part or be participants on this type of behaviors that what they do is feed the angel of death. Okay, and remember the angel of death. What is the angel of death? The angel of death is basically something that sounds true because like we read before, you know. Let me go back here so you can understand. It sounds true, but it's not true, right? Because as we gonna see here, it says, but because you are included among the letters that form the word falsehood, sheker, I do not wish to create a world with you. Falsehood would not have prevailed have you not been attached to the letter resh and kuf. From this, and listen to this part, from this, whoever wants to tell a lie should add that lie to a base that is truthful, right? Something that is truthful. So you're gonna find these people, like I mentioned before, the word Kabbalah, and what they're actually doing is studying what we call Elohim Acherim, right? Other gods and or the back side of what we're studying, which is the light. And what they're doing is they're feeding these forces. And that's not what we want to do. What we want to do is study the light. We concentrate on studying these forces that have to do with the light, these forces that have to do with advancement and evolution of our soul, because we are not supposed to deal with these forces. These forces, they promise you power, knowledge, and all this kind of stuff, you know, that people want, material things and that kind of stuff. If you do this ritual, if you summon this demon, if you summon this angel, that's not what Kabbalah is all about. Kabbalah is about advancing yourself spiritually by loving your neighbor as yourself. And in this way, you're connecting more and more to the Creator. You're connecting to the light. And these forces that some people are working with are going to be redeemed as we advance. As we go higher, they will go higher. And they're going to be less and less against us, less and less trying to feed from us like vampires, right? And this is our job. But if we're going to go and study that kind of stuff, you know, then we're not doing anything to advance our soul. I'm not saying, you know, don't study any of those philosophies or anything like that, but if you really want to truly advance spiritually, concentrate on the Zohar, concentrate on true teachers of Kabbalah that are out there, and they're not teaching this kind of stuff about doing crazy rituals in order to achieve power through the names of God, to the name of angels or demons and things like that. because that's falsehood. And even though it sounds true, it's falsehood. It comes from the forces of Tuma, it comes from the forces or impure forces, okay? And it's not gonna take you anywhere other than drag you down and bring misery into your life. And that's basically what's happening in our life. So in us, we need to do the same thing in our personal life. We need to concentrate in advancing ourselves. This is the part where you are basically loving yourself, not in an egoistic way, in which it's only me first and the rest can wait. Love yourself means accept yourself as the Creator has created you. And in this way, you're going to see that your perception of the other people are going to change as well, because you're going to accept them as the Creator has created them. It doesn't mean you're going to participate in their tikkun. If they're messing up, you don't participate in that. You don't interfere trying to change or fix their lives, right? You can do what is called, tzedakah. You can participate in what is called, tikkun olam, that kind of stuff. But to try to change a person, tikkun sometimes is not good. You're feeding these forces again. This person is not a willing receiver. Willing receiver means a person that is willing to change. There's nothing you can do because that person needs to go through that change by himself or herself. All you can do is study Kabbalah, pray for this person to make sure they receive the light, to make sure and see if they can change the way they're living their lives. But you cannot change the way they're living their lives. They have to do it themselves. And if you enable them to continue in that way, then you're feeding these forces. And also sometimes they drag you down with that as well. And sadly, we want to be saviors, and we want to change people's life in a way, because we want to be altruistic. We don't want to be egoistic. I see the light in my life. I want to share this light. But if the person is not ready, it doesn't matter what you try. The person is not going to see it that way. The person is going to see you as an enemy. And sometimes it's better to keep it quiet, keep it to yourself, and not lose that friend, because you can influence a person in different ways other than enabling or helping them, interfering with their tikkun. Okay? Like I said, that doesn't mean that you cannot give tzedakah or anything like that. That does not mean that. Just that some people, if you want to help them change their life, they need to be willing and accepting that change will come. If they're not willing to change, there's nothing you can do. They will not change. Change comes from within, not from without. Okay? Now, we still have like 2 more minutes. Let me finish here quickly with something that I'm gonna read. This is that we have learned how the letters kuf and resh became 2 sources from where the development and the emergence of the impure forces come from, right? And because the impure forces they pose as they were pure, or they are posed as they were truthful when they're false. These letters are also called false, counterfeit letters. When the purpose of these letters is basically to annihilate the system of the pure forces and their unity with the Creator, so as to forge themselves out of the devastation of the pure forces. The birth of these impure forces of Tuma from the destructions of the pure forces of Kedusha is possible only in the account of the letters Shin of the Yesod of Malkuth, okay? This letter here. That's why, remember Shaddai, that's why everything stopped there. If the impure forces, the forces of Tuma, the impure forces of the letters of Tumah, are born from the destruction of the pure ones and are enabled by the letter Shin. Yesod Malkuth, which is Zeir Anpin, or the Shin that you see in the diagram, joining with the impure forces as a result of the forging of the letter resh out of Dalet. Okay, so remember, out of the Dalet, the impure forces go up, and resh becomes, then you got the Achar. So Echad turns to Acher, and the system of Elohim Acherim, other gods, is created. Had the letter Kuf and Resh not captured the letter Shin, and if these forces will have, let's say, connected to the letter Shin, the Kuf and the Resh, such an enormous system of impure forces that are capable of lying, falsifying everything in the eyes of man would have come to being. This is why the Creator said to the letter Shin, even though you're good, you will stand at the head of the word sheker, falsehood, together with the letters kuf and resh. Indeed, upon capturing you with your power, they will be able to create an entire system of impure forces, of falsehood and forgery. Hence, I cannot create the world with your properties. For since there is an impure system opposite from you, it is impossible to achieve the goal of creation with you. Okay? And this is why the letter Shin was not chosen for creation by the Creator. And just remember what I mentioned, from these letters, the Dalet and the Resh, and the Echad and the Achar, and the inner and outer aspect of this letter, we can learn a lot about the many Kabbalahs that are out there that claim to be authentic, or Kabbalahs that will bring you power, the Kabbalahs that will connect you to these demons and forces and things like that. They are not what we're supposed to work with. They don't bring anything that advances people spiritually. It's more about gaining power here in this life, instead of using previous life, using this life in order to prepare ourselves for a future life, if we reincarnate or not, and continue this work called the redemption, or the fixing of the world, or the system that has been broken or come down. By using those forces, what we're doing is we're breaking more the system, and we're bringing more instead of bringing kedusha, which is holiness, we're bringing more unholiness, more impureness, more impure things to the world. Okay, and there will always be what is called war. War in Kabbalah is not a war between human beings killing each other. It's a different kind of war. But there will be peace. Peace means in Kabbalah, meaning shalom, that shalema, that everything is complete, everything is whole. Okay, so think about that. Don't break the system more than it is. Let's mend the system. So basically, that's the whole message of this lesson. Okay, so that's all for now. In the next lesson, we're gonna be going through other letters, such as the kuf and the resh, finally, and then we will finish with the letters that are under the Malkuth of Atziluth. And then we're gonna be also as well touching base on the tzadik, the pei, the ain, and probably we'll finish with the samek, depending how the time goes. The time flies when we're studying interesting things, right? Okay, I'll see you until the next lesson. Shalom, and thank you for being here.